May the Lord give this council the wisdom, discernment and courage to serve the community. Grant also that we may act compassionately and with integrity in the best interest of this shire. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I'd like to show respect and acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land and elders past, present and future on which this meeting takes place. This meeting has been audio recorded and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements. There should be no other recording of this meeting without prior authorisation of council. Okay, councillors, welcome. And I ask for apologies.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
No apologies.
Just with that, there are two requests for leave of absence, one from Councillor Lee Watts and for a period in July, and also one from yourself, the Mayor, being from the 14th of July through to the 21st of July, and you indicate you're being contacted and available on email and mobile during that time.
I'll move that those leaves of absence be approved.
Move Councillor Brown, second Councillor Campbell. All in favour? Against? Carried. Public participation.
There's none, Mr. Mayor.
Confirmation of the minutes. Councillors, we'll break this down into the ordinary council meeting held on the 25th of May. Someone like to move those minutes? Move Councillor Driscoll. Second Councillor Fisher. Any questions, comment, discussion?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't accept that these are a true and accurate record, as there is no report on any of the discussion held with respect to the business items and questions with notice. Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Could you just please clarify that a little bit more, please, Councillor?
These are the record of the May meeting, and there was considerable discussion on not being able to ask questions on the business items through the agenda. And yes, essentially there was quite a lot of robust discussion, and there was also some robust discussion during my actual questions with notice. So I just don't accept that these are an actual record of what we went through.
Just for the benefit of the Mayor, obviously we don't take Hansard minutes, but obviously we don't record all the questions that are asked either in regards to these. Normally it's the issues, the motions, they'd be quite lengthy otherwise, but that's normally the procedure we've followed in regards to the minute taking, making sure that we've recorded what the item is, brief description of the motion, and then basically how it's been moved. And if there's any in regards to any amendments or motions or amended or foreshadowed motions, so we record how the actual matter's been transacted.
Could I just clarify through you, Mr. Mayor, if we ask questions on items in the agenda, should they not be recorded when we've asked them? Should they not be then in the minutes? It says they should be a full and accurate record. So there was a lot of discussion about questions being asked during the business items on the agenda, and there is no record of that here. So I think that it was quite robust. I think it should be there. Thank you.
So, Councillor Brown, yes.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Could I just to assist, the minutes are, and this is the form that they have always taken in my time as a councillor, and it's fairly usual practice in other councils across New South Wales that they be recorded in this form. The meeting most certainly was robust, and the recording of that meeting, as I understand it, available on our website. So these are public record of it. But the minutes are essentially to record decisions of the council. It doesn't, not to provide a verbatim record. And I think that I don't think they pretend to be a full account of what occurred at the meeting, but just to record faithfully the decisions of the council.
Thank you, councillor Brown. Yes, I agree that it's a summary of the minutes. So that's the way I would take it. Yes.
And sorry, further, I might just add, just in terms of questions being asked, there are often questions are asked to clarify in councillors' minds to assist in the making of their decisions that are answered or taken on notice. And again, it's not been the practice that they be recorded. And I think that the minutes are accurate and reflect the decisions of that meeting.
Thank you, councillor Brown.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could I ask one more question? When we do ask questions, when do those answers come back to councillors? If we do ask on the business items, when do those questions answered come back to us?
Just with that, through you, Mr. Mayor, in regards to when the information is available in the general manager, I'll instruct the staff to prepare a report or whatever it may be to respond.
Thank you, councillor. So we're back onto the ordinary meeting on the 25th of March. It was moved by councillor Driscoll and Fisher. So hands up, all in favour of the minutes? Against? Carried. On to extraordinary council meeting held on the 11th of June. Got a mover? Move councillor Campbell. A seconder? Councillor Brown. Questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Extraordinary council meeting held on the 16th of June. Move councillor Fisher, second councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Point 6 on the agenda, disclosure of interest.
I have 3, Mr. Mayor. With that, with councillor Watts in regards to CR 06.1. It's in regards to donations. She indicated it's a pecuniary and significant, and she's the manager of the neighbourhood centre identified to receive a rental reduction. She'll leave the chamber for that item, have no involvement. In regards to the second item, second one is for councillor Sue Abbott. It's in relation to item enclosed, which is CR 06.1. It refers to COVID commercial rent relief. Councillor Abbott's indicated that she's married to a worker at the Scone Medical Practice, and intends to leave the chamber. And the final item is from Councillor Burns. It's in regards to CR 06.2, which is the town CBD revitalisation, Scone curbside dining, expression of interest. The interest is a non-pecuniary and significant. To the applicant's board, the business he owns. He'll be staying in the room and will not debate or vote. Thank you. And just with Councillor Abbott, it was a pecuniary non-significant interest.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Merrill minutes. Neil.
There's no Merrill minutes.
Reports. Standing committees. Councillors over to SCR 06.1, Development and Environmental Services. And a mover. Move councillor Fisher, second. So just dot point 1, move councillor Fisher, second councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion on that one?
Yes, I have just a query. Councillor Watts' question. It says the planning proposal will be advertised in the Newcastle Herald newspaper this week and surrounding property owners will be notified. Have the surrounding property owners been notified?
Mr. Pringle.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they have.
Okay, all in favour of that dot point 1? Against? Carried. That was all one. Yep, thank you. Dot point 2, move councillor Fisher, second councillor Burns. Question, comment, discussion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Oh, they did put, yeah, they put their hands up, yeah. Yep. Okay. Move over to the Finance Committee on page 9, SCR 06.2.
Just for your, through you, Mr Mayor, just a correction in regards to the recommendation that staff prepared. That should be, item number 1 should be, the date should be the 19th. So adopt the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held on the 19th of June, 2020.
We're going to move with that slight amendment. This is Councillor Fisher. Second, Councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Fisher.
Formerly, the Finance Committee used to meet on the Friday before the Monday council meeting. Now that we've moved that meeting considerably forward, and the Finance Committee actually appeared in the business part for the monthly meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, I fully support that, Councillor Fisher's suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Comment, discussion, all in favour? Against, carried. Infrastructure, SCR 06.3, page 11. Move Councillor Campbell, second Councillor Driscoll. Comment, discussion. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, look, on page 12, MR 358 Willow Tree Road, I have a comment to make there. This road is a general road, is recognised as a vital link road connecting the western part of the Shire and beyond to allow produce, livestock and general goods to be transported to the destination each day. It is also a vital road that is used by employees and travellers. These concerns have been well documented at the infrastructure meetings previously. I need to stress the importance of getting this road open to a single lane with suitable traffic control measures as soon as possible to allow heavy transport vehicles to traverse this road and meet with the community acceptance. I don't believe that we can allow this road to be closed while the design work, in fact, and rectification work to be carried out. It's of vital importance that this road be open to a single lane to allow the heavy transports to traverse this road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. I think we all would agree with that, and I'm sure the powers that be will be looking into that ASAP. Councillor Abbott.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to ask, top of page 13, the first line, it says fill material was won from the upslope cut butters. I don't know what that means.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So apologise for that. The one is excavating. So you win the material. So you've extracted the material from the top side of the cutting. That's where we excavate the material and then we placed it in the bottom side of the cutting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. No more questions. Comment, discussion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillors, over to page 20. SCR 06.4, the Infrastructure Services Extraordinary Meeting. Move, Councillor Campbell, second. Who was the seconder?
Sorry.
Councillor Driscoll.
Oh, it's okay.
Questions, comment, discussion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just hoping that the mover and seconder might consider a slight amendment to this recommendation. A few councillors have had difficulty accessing the various asset management plans and reviewing them. They're a very lengthy tome, and I understand that if we were to defer the adoption of these by 1 month, it's not going to cause our infrastructure staff too much grief. So if you were amenable, I would ask you to consider that we defer the consideration of the adoption of these plans until the next meeting.
Mover.
Mr Mayor, I'm a little against that. The reason being that there was a document given out to all councillors with all those listing all the policies, etc. I think it had a green page, if I recall. Is that perhaps Mr Haviott could concur with that? if that was given out and that was given out to all councils, I don't see that we should defer. If it was not, well, then I would probably be happy to defer.
Yep, so through the mayor. So yes, we provided the documents on Google Drive. There wasn't a hard copy issued. There was a briefing and there was that item, but I agree with Councillor Brown. It won't cause us any grief operationally if we defer it for 1 month. And so it's, yeah, entirely up to you.
It's up to the Councillor Fisher. You can comment.
Yes, there are numerous documents, and I'm not sure that it wouldn't be helpful to allow councillors to access them all. It will lead to a fuller discussion if there are issues to be discussed. Can I assure those who haven't read through the documents that there's an awful lot of duplication within them? So don't be too daunted. There's a lot of repeat stuff that appears in each plan as carried through. But yes, I'm very happy to support deferring them.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Fisher. I've actually got no problem with it as long as the staff are happy with it, but that's up to Councillor Campbell. You were the mover.
Yes, look, I'll concur with this. I'm still not happy about it, but on the other hand, I can understand. However, I don't believe that that's really the issue, that they are on Google Drive, they are available, and it's up for us to attend the briefings and also to attend and to read those documents when they're made available. And I think that I'll agree to it this time, but I think it's quite wrong that we're doing this when they are already available on Google Drive and, as I repeat, at the briefings, and they're not being attended.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Driscoll, you as a second, are you quite happy? Yeah. Okay. Those in favour of deferring?
I'd like to speak, thank you.
Yep.
I don't think half of us have read it. It's the policy. It's not the plan that's actually missing, Mr. Mayor. And it's not missing. We have finally found it, but I work with computers every day and I had no idea where to find it. And I looked for a couple of hours, did approach the GM, as you're aware, and had a link sent through today, which still didn't identify the actual policy that I was looking for. So to say that we're given them and we need to attend meetings, Mr. Mayor, is just not fair. It's very rare that I come to a meeting without the information in front of me. So I'd just like to point that out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watts, and it's certainly taken on notice that
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to reiterate all of that too. And I'm the same. I come to every meeting having read everything. It was very difficult finding the policy. It was not in its usual policy format for us to review. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're all on the same page that we're all happy to defer. So all those in favour might have a show of hands. Against? Thank you. Carried. Audit Risk and Improvement Committee on page 23. C06.1, move Councillor Fisher. Second, Councillor Brown. Any questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Burns, sorry. Wanted to split you two up. No, all in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 31, committee membership. We might go through these from the top to the bottom. The Finance Committee.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to wait until September of this year. So I had expressed an interest to you to be on it, but I'm withdrawing that interest right now.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. That's, yes, it's only through till September, so I'm sure we'll get through. So at the moment, we've got Councillor Burns to take on the Finance Committee.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll take that.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Abbott to take on Infrastructure Services Committee. I've got Councillor Burns to take on the Floodplain Management Committee. Got Councillor Fisher to take on the Scone Airport Management Committee. Is that a nod, Councillor Fisher? Yes. Councillor Burns to take on the Scone Saleyards Committee. The Upper Hunter Shire Land Committee, I'll take that myself. The White Part Management and Development Committee, Councillor Burns. The ED&T, if everyone's happy, I'll take that one on. Everyone happy? Yes. Councillor Watts, you wishing to speak?
Only that the ED&T is not even on here, but I didn't think the former mayor was on the White Park Committee.
Um,
I don't believe he was, so there's no replacement there.
White Park Management Development Committee, councillor Bedgood, Fisher and Watts, as required.
This was the current. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. There was only two councillors. There was only two councillors as far as I was aware. I didn't think there was. What's the
This is
charter
on
say?
the committees, so that's probably what we're going to go on. So,
Okay.
okay. And the ED&T wasn't on, but we talked about it in the briefing session. Councillor Watts, you may not have been. So, okay.
Should you point out that ED&T stands for Economic Development and Tourism?
Tourism. Thank you, councillor Fisher. So we've got to move it for those delegations, those committee move, councillor Campbell, second, councillor Brown. Any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Aye, against, carried. Okay, move over to page 34, G06.1, request for donations. Oh, sorry, councillor Watts.
Am I leaving for this one or the other one?
No.
Can I stay? I'm there to do
This is the
this one I
donations.
indicated.
Yes, it is. This is the one you did indicate. So I just sort of.
Did you wish to leave the room or you?
Can you give me a moment to think about it?
I don't think it was this one.
It's the commercial tenant.
No, it's not this one.
Sorry.
I'll move it.
Move councillor Watts. Second, councillor Driscoll. Any questions, comment, discussion?
Yes, please. Now that I'm
What's
right off page now. The donations are a huge part of what we do here. And look, I'd just like to note, I know it's not a great amount, but the neighbourhood centre is noted as $370, which can be removed. Part of COVID-19, a lot of these events may not have occurred. And if I can ask council to follow up to see if there are more donations there that we might be able to give to somebody else in the meantime with one day to spare.
Thank you, councillor Watts. That's certainly,
That's no, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you. No more questions, comment, discussion. Councillor Brown.
It might be worth, if following the investigation, that there are a number of unused funds. So I think there was some advice that we had spent almost the entire budget allocation, that if there are some unused funds for events that weren't able to proceed, that we carry those funds over into the next financial year to be dispersed then. So that we would, so it might be worth just amending the motion that any unspent funds in the donations budget be carried over to next financial year.
Thanks, councillor Brown. I think those funds are overdrawn by 400 now. Is that right? Credit back in. So, councillor Fisher.
Yes, a couple of, I think last year's budget was fully expended. The year before, I remember that we did donate the residue, which wasn't a whole lot of money, but the residue was donated to the Upper Hunter Wildlife Rescue Service, which services part of the Shire if you come across an injured animal on the road, etc., etc. And they provide a very worthwhile service. And I know they were very appreciative of that grant the last time from the residue of the donations budget. So I could suggest that way as well.
Okay, so the mover, councillor Watts, you happy? Councillor Watts moved it. You happy with that? Who was the seconder? Councillor Driscoll, you happy with the change in that recommendation? Okay, any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Oh, sorry, councillor Brown.
Sorry. Can I just clarify? I think councillor Fisher's suggestion is a good use of those unspent monies. Is that what we're suggesting, or that it just be allocated into next year's donation budget? Sorry to throw a cat among the pigeons, as it were.
Just to put another cat among the pigeons, my daughter, so I would have a conflict. My daughter is with one of the rescue. So if we just add the amendment, I think to Councillor Brown to look at options. I mean, there may not be any money left anyway.
I think when we carry it forward, we'll find out what events are going to get council receive the money back for. Once we get that money, then we
Bring
can
it back
basically
to
bring
council
something back
and
to
then I
council.
can
Have
declare
this
an interest.
discussion about that because we're not sure how much that will be.
Thank you.
Councillor Fisher.
Just for clarity, Mr Mayor, that group was called Wildlife Aid Upper Hunter Valley. And that it should have a record from 2 years back.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. So we're moving back to Councillor Brown's motion. Councillor Watts's motion and second by Councillor Driscoll. Right, we all in favour? Against? That took a bit of dealing with, didn't it? Okay, councillors, page 41, G06.2, the delivery program 2017-18 to 2020-21 and operational plan 2021. Move Councillor Fisher, second Councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. Yes, we did have some public participation, didn't we, via email? And I note that Mr. Howard sent his submissions again, and I just want to raise some of them because they don't seem to have been amended into the Depop. And there was talk about the Murrurundi Community Technology Centre, the CTC, and basically the money that he suggested we might put in, perhaps we could look at 7,000 to cover courses and tuition, and $2,000 for a laptop. And basically I have to agree with his submission that it is not enough to say that the CTCs are being reviewed across the Shire. As Mr. Howard says, reviewing a service should not preclude enabling it to conduct its function effectively and efficiently during the interim period. A CTC needs specific programme funds to plan and deliver a calendar of educational support for the community. He also went on to mention social protection budget, as he felt, and I agree with him, that the existing allocation is far too small. He also said that if we did that, it would tap into our own council's own ageing and disability strategy. He went on to mention Murrurundi's Youth Centre, the public loo, the wellness and exercise space, and vacant shops. And I'd like to just say that his submission, as well as my own submission, there's a common theme here that there just hasn't been enough spent on vulnerable people, and that includes women and children and the aged and disabled. And I'd also just like to draw attention to page 45, where it mentions the attachment 1 summary of submissions. They weren't in the agenda. We went straight to attachment 2. But thank you for listening. And I do want to stress that as I said before, it's too blokey, this Depop. And there needs to be a lot more money in future times for vulnerable people. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Abbott, thank you. Any directors like to comment on that or just take it on notice? Take it on notice.
Yeah, we'll take it on notice and obviously listen to that. But obviously, this particular council has traditionally been an infrastructure type council, and I think that's what you're referring to in regards to Blokey. Is that, Councillor Abbott? Just to clarify that to anybody watching this video.
It is, yes, thank you. It is that.
And obviously, that's something that we've discussed in our briefings in regards to the different services that we provide. So,
thank you for your comments. No more question, comment, discussion. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Over to page 56, I06.1, renaming of the Junction Bridge, Rookel. Move Councillor Fisher, second Councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion.
Yes.
Councillor Abbott.
Yes, I just want to clarify. So this bridge is now it's not going to be knocked down. So we're going to rename the Junction Bridge. Is that right? Or was it? I just got. Is it the Junction Bridge we're renaming?
Yes, Councillor Abbott. It was going to be Cameron's Bridge, but we decided to go further up the Rookel when that bridge is going to remain a wooden structure.
Yes.
And be taken over and kept as a heritage structural bridge, and rename it from the Junction Bridge to the renaming.
Can I just ask, so there will be community consultation, will there? Because this is quite a sensitive issue, isn't it? Renaming a bridge. So we're swapping the bridges around that we're going to rename. So how does this play out now for council and the community?
I might let infrastructure answer that one.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. So I understand what you're saying. You raised some good points. On the bottom of page 57, there's the process that we go through for the graphical naming board. So the first thing we need to do is advertise and consult with the community about this proposed change. This bridge is also a little bit unique. It's been heritage listed, as we've discussed in previous council meetings, and Transport for New South Wales are going to actually take over this structure to maintain it and preserve it, which is fantastic. We've also been consulting with them obviously beforehand because it's going to become their structure, and they're supportive of this change, but it really comes down to community consultation and going through that process and making sure that the community are happy with it. We did talk about Cameron's Bridge, the one that we're replacing, and because it's already got a significant, it's named after significant people in that part of the valley already. So that's why we thought we'd look at this other bridge that is just named Junction because it's at a junction of the rivers.
Thank you. So essentially, when we agree to this, this has now been moved and seconded, so now we're going to vote on it. But it sort of implies that that there's an inference that we will be renaming it McMullins. So do we? But we're going to wait and hear what the community has to say about that.
So the recommendation today is that we follow the graphical naming board process for the renaming. So our proposal, staff's proposal to the council is that we propose that name change and then we follow that guideline, those 8 points on page 57. And the first thing we do is consultation, and then there's a further report that comes back to council with that consultation before it actually gets named, the name changes. So it's a bit of a lengthy process.
Yes, so it's about a conversation. So today we're voting on a conversation.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's very important that we move on with that Cameron's Bridge construction ASAP, because it is going to flood again in the near future. So let's move on with it. So no more questions, comment, discussion on that. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 60, I06.2, the Golden Highway Road Maintenance Council contract. The mover, Councillor Campbell. Second, Councillor Driscoll. Questions, comment, discussion. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Over to page 64, we've got a notice of motion, closure of Target Scone. Councillor Burns.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move this notice of motion with a slight amendment, given that there was a meeting held by the Scone Chamber of Commerce and Industry after I submitted. So my motion is that this council instruct the General Manager to make representations to Wesfarmers with regards to Target Scone's closure and urge Wesfarmers to reconsider the closure. Point number 2, second, support the local state members' petition to keep Target Scone open for the people of the Upper Hunter Shire. The amendment, Mr Mayor, would be number 3, support the Scone Chamber of Commerce and Industries campaign of take the target off our target. And number 4, maintain communications with Wesfarmers as to the progress of the impending closure or continued operation.
Second, Councillor Watts. No more questions, comment, discussion. Yep.
Please.
Yep.
I'm happy to support it as Target is a well-needed store in our area. It's not just here for Scone people. People travel from Murrundi over from Merriwall, back from Aberdeen to support the store. So the loss of it will be an impact to this community. However, I think we and the state member is a little late in putting forward his protesting against its loss. I think the time was before the shop was actually identified as a closure. However, if we can save it, I'm totally in support of that. So as I said, I will support the motion and fingers crossed a miracle happens.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Councillor Burns, could you forward that through to, thank you very much. No more questions, comment, discussion. All in favour? Aye, against, carried. Page 65, QWN 06.1, questions with notice.
Can I speak on one of mine, please? Mr.
Councillor
Mayor?
Watts, yes.
And I think this, rather than put on a board and for the community, I think it should be read out. I'd like to thank, on behalf of the many in the Aberdeen community, Jessica Benko and Les Wright, who both look after the Aberdeen outdoor areas. And I've asked the General Manager to ensure that the message is passed on to the staff members. Now, while I've written that, I'll just add that that doesn't mean that they're the only ones doing a good job. It's right across the Upper Hunter, but the Aberdeen community have actually come to me and asked me to do that. And in response to question 4, Mr. Javier, I'm just not sure on the response where you've said the works have now been reprogrammed once the gravel issues have been resolved. Does this mean council has secured gravel from the same person or another location for them to reprogram that?
Yep, so through the Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
So it's, we've discussed with other property owners up the Rookel Valley and looking at I think they've resolved to source the material from a different location.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Councillor Abbott.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the answers. In relation to my question 1, which you may say was answered in last month, I still haven't had an answer as to whether the workers at JBS were the ones who were stood down, whether they were Section 457 visa holders. And then I'd also like to ask more questions about Strategic Services Australia Limited. In response to what is the cost to the Upper Hunter Shire community to be part of the Hunter Joint Organisation of Councils, the response is $30,877. Is that per annum, or what?
Yes, it is per annum.
And but I was reading a document put out by IPART, and initially it looked like that the Hunter Joint Organisation was to operate with no cost to member councils, as operational costs were to be met through profits generated by commercial activities of the current regional entities. I am very concerned about Strategic Services Australia Limited because as a corporation, it's very hard to get information about them. Strategic Services Australia is a business name that Strategic Services Australia Limited have. Originally, this was Hunter Councils Limited, and then they changed their name to Strategic Services Australia. My quest here for information is, as the Upper Hunter Shire Council, we're now one of those member councils, and we really don't know what's happening down there or what's actually in line for us as a community. And as one of my questions did ask about how does it benefit somebody in Cassius or anywhere in our Shire to be a member of Hunter Joint Organisation, and I don't feel that this has been answered. And when you do searches for this body, it's very, very nebulous. Sometimes pages aren't found. If you look up Strategic Services Australia, it goes to Hunter Joint Organisation. I am very, very concerned about this, and I'm very concerned that I can't look up information, and I wonder what the cost is going to be for all the ratepayers in the Upper Hunter Shire with our involvement here. And it also takes away a lot of you, Mr. Mayor, it will take away a lot of your time, and it takes away a lot of the General Manager's time as well.
Mr. Mayor, a point of order. This is an argument. I think that I have no problem with Councillor Abbott's question, but I think when she is endeavouring to argue the point of her question, that is not the answer. The answer should be given by the directors on whatever the case may be, but not to be arguing your case before that. And I believe it's not what the questions, councillor questions is about, and I object to it.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. I'll take that on note. And
I am
General
wrapping
Manager,
up.
do you wish to answer? I cannot answer that because
will
I
make
haven't been to
will
a
make
meeting
comment.
yet.
I'm actually the chair of Strategic Services Australia, so the general managers, each general manager is a representative of that particular
Through you,
group.
Mr. Mayor, just before, are you the chair of Strategic Services Australia
Yes,
or Strategic Services Australia Limited? Because there's a difference.
limited.
Limited. So you're part of the corporation because Strategic Services Australia fits under, that's a business name. There are 7 business names.
There's in relation to it, what happens is with the Hunter JO, that's an advocacy arm that's set up under the Local Government Act. Before they were set up under the Local Government Act, there was a business arm which was attached to it, which used to try and fund the aim of the businesses, and that includes legal. There's a training institute there. There's one in regards to procurement. There's one about environment. There's one about Screen Hunter, which is a film production. So what they tried to do is to provide services that are originally, they were customised to their member councils. So in regards to training, things like that, services that weren't available to us in the Hunter, those businesses were originally set up to provide training services and procurement services, things like that we couldn't get. Okay, and basically, as that's expanded, there's a fee for service for that. So we pay, as a member, we pay a discounted rate for that, same with legal fees, legal fees. But other businesses charge a higher rate, and the whole aim of those businesses is to generate a profit, which firstly to benefit the local members, to generate a profit, which then goes to offset the costs for the members. So that's how that works. So each, just in regards to the general managers and mayors are members of Hunter JO. Okay, the mayors are voting members, and each general manager of each of the 10 councils is a member of the board of Strategic Services Australia Limited.
I'm just very, very concerned about this. So
And that just is that board, right? That board, we report to the Hunter JO. So they're the shareholders. The Hunter JO are the shareholders, and there's a report when there's a briefing in regards to the activities of that business.
I understand that originally it was the Hunter Regional Organisation of Councils.
Yeah, that's right. And it's changed.
And that makes sense. There was a lot of, why should every council own a bulldozer? I understand
that's right. That's how it was set up. So it's
become bigger than that. There's seven business names here. When you do an ASIC search, there's 7 business names. But Strategic Services Australia Limited is, you can't do freedom of information if you want to find out more information. And we've had very little information. In the 4 years I've been a councillor, we've had very little information about this. And I do wonder if it's really worthy or worth us to be a member of this. I'm very concerned about it.
Okay, just through you, Mr. Mayor, if I make one other comment. We did have a briefing from the Hunter JO, the CEO from the Hunter JO, a month ago. I think it was before the last council meeting. Okay, in relation to that, we can potentially have another further discussion about the interactions. I'm quite happy to do that in regards to if that needs to be arranged, just to clarify for councillors, because there are definite benefits from our members. I'm just saying from each council to actually be a member of it. They do a lot of work in the environment side as well. So there's a whole infrastructure. They look at infrastructure, advocate for councils for infrastructure. So there's a fair bit of work that they do. It just we need to be a bit clear in regards to the information provided to the council so they have a better understanding of what the activities are that we undertake in the Hunter JO and also for Strategic Services Australia.
So just on that, Mr. GM, I'd imagine we could pull out of that organisation, but it'd be a council's decision.
Just in relation to, there's one of the questions relates to that. Talks about that we opted in. I'll just have to find out where it is.
I think you've got to give 12 months notice.
Yeah, 12 months notice or something like that. But yeah, there's a process to go through, but we did.
So I'd suggest councillors, if it needs bringing up again, we go through that channel and debate it as a full council. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, no more questions on that. No more answer. Everyone's happy. If that's the case, someone would like to move us into closed council. Oh, do we move them, do we? Just notation. Someone would like to notate those minutes. Let's move Councillor Abbott, second Councillor Campbell. No more questions, comment, discussion around it. All in favour? Aye. Carry. Oh, okay.
Nice one.
Got to be quicker, Councillor Fisher. Okay, someone like to move us into close? Councillor Brown.